Hey everybody, it's Dan. Welcome back and welcome to this review of the newly released Stargrave Automatons. And I should say newly released as of the time of filming. They're actually due to release tomorrow, so I'm hurrying to get this video up as quickly as I can so it coincides with that release. And on that note, I should mention this video is sponsored by North Star, who were kind enough to send this to us to take a look at together. So huge thanks to them for sending it our way to review together. And for those who've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that we've looked at some sci-fi sets together, and while we've looked at now quite a few North Star sets from their Oathmark and Frostgrave ranges, this is actually the first Stargrave set that we'll be taking a look at. And I suppose knowing that very generously, North Star has actually sent along 3 other boxes from their Stargrave range, which will help us with I like to do kit bashing, so we'll do quite a bit of kit bashing toward the end of this video, some compare and contrast from a scale standpoint. But it also means we'll have 3 separate reviews, probably over the next week and a half or so, looking at some other boxes from the Stargrave range. So stay tuned for that as well. And I gotta tell you, I really dig the Stargrave aesthetic. If you're not familiar with it, it is the sci-fi counterpart to their skirmish fantasy Frostgrave game. And as I understand it, the mechanics actually are fairly similar. At least they share some components of one another. And I dig it's not grimdark. I would call it more just gritty, the aesthetic compared to some of the more polished sci-fi settings. In the way that I've said that I really admire the design of their Oathmark range for being rooted in 70s and 80s fantasy art. This to me really harkens back to 80s and 90s sci-fi art and shows before a lot of the polish I think that has happened with modern video game interpretations, even things like Star Wars to a certain extent that have become a little more sanitized. This is more like the show Firefly, if you ever saw that, or Dune, some of the art pre-movies, and even the movies to a certain extent, where it is just a little bit more rough around the edges. There's some comedy and whimsy in it still too, so I really admire that about their design approach to this range. So the box follows the pattern that we saw with the Frostgrave sets that we've looked at, which is that there are 20 miniatures. They're going to be round 25mm bases inside. The name Automaton, at least based on the depiction that they have here, is interesting. I don't know if this is a difference between US and UK English, but here in the States, we would probably use the term cyborg to refer to this kind of mutant human robot hybrid. So again, I don't know if automaton is what you guys would use across the pond. Let me know in the comments, but there's nothing wrong with that. I know exactly what you're talking about. So anyway, the art on the front is effective as ever. I really like the blue star design that they have on all their Stargrave boxes. And as with all of my reviews now, I have already taken the contents of the box out. So if you were to unbox this for yourself, this is what you're going to be greeted with inside, which are 4 sprues of 5 miniatures apiece, and you're going to have 2 sprues of these 25mm flats, which are very nice and effective. A little bit of texture on the top there for you too. So as these are 5 identical sprues, we can isolate one of them and take a look at it up close. So if you're not familiar with my reviews, welcome. What we're going to do here is we're going to look at the sprue front and back up close. I'm going to give you a breakdown of all of these bits. It's probably a better orientation, Dan. I'll give you a breakdown of all of these bits, let you know what the numbers are. On them, we're going to assemble some of these figures. I had alluded to some kit bashing that we're going to do with some other Stargrave sets. We're going to do some scale comparisons with different miniatures in my collection from other manufacturers, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. So let's dive on in here. So front and back of the sprue, what I really like about this sprue already, and maybe it's jumped out at you too, is that it gets straight to the point with the number of arms that come in this set, because I think that is the real selling point here, is when we're dealing with mutant, automaton, cyborgs, whatever you want to call them. That's the coolest part here, is that you can mix and match a bunch of different crazy weapons and heads, and that it seems is what the sprue offers. So let's start with the bodies here. We'll move bodies, heads, arms. Is what I typically like to do. So you can see from a design standpoint, what they've done here is you've got these big hulking brutish bodies. I think the box suggested that from a background standpoint, these are supposed to be kind of undead, and you got these bloated corpses here with robot bits. I like too that like some of them have just human feet, some of them have robot feet or robotic feet. Some of them have a mix of the two. Good mix of tattered gear and stuff here too. All of them have some kind of like robotic implants in their spines. Really gruesome stuff, but pay particular attention here to the sculpting on like the fabric. Some tears and rips and stuff here. Really excellent from a detail standpoint. I love even just like these little bits and bobs on them. They'll be really fun to paint. And then let's talk about heads here. So in terms of heads, so again, 5 bodies per sprue, 20 bodies, of course, across the set. In terms of heads, we have 18 heads on either side of the sprue here. And I normally like to categorize heads, but I had a real hard time with that. So I'm just going to kind of rotate around the sprue here. You can see some of them are pretty gruesome. Again, going back to these being undead, or at least a mixture of rotting human flesh and robotic bits. And that really carries through with the face detail. I'll say, too, whether or not you like the theme, this is some of the best face sculpting that we've seen from North Star, I think, in their plastic sets. And it was already very good, especially with their more recent Frostgrave and Oathmark sets that we've looked at. All the sculpting's been really fantastic. I'll show you the back of the heads, too, because you can see there's a mix of human and robot bits just to pay attention to here. But all of it's very crisp, very detailed. So yeah, it all looks fantastic. And then let's talk arms here for a second, because this is where it gets kind of wild. I had to count like 5 times, so if I have a miscount on anything, I apologize, but I know I'm going to be pretty close. There are 38 total arms across the sprue. There are 19 left and 19 right arms. I don't know if they did it on purpose, but great if they did. And then let me just start rotating around the sprue, because I think that's going to be the best way to do this. Just, instead of hopping around, I can just kind of move up and down the sprue here and show you the different weapon options that exist. So I mentioned 19 left, 19 right arms. Of the left arms, there are 4 that are guns and 15 that are what I'll call close combat weapons. And then the breakdown for right arms, again, 19 right arms. There are 11 that are guns, and there are 8 that are close combat weapons, and a really great array of not only like sci-fi looking guns that are pretty convincing looking, kind of crude weapons, things like drills, these like robotic arms and stuff, right? I mentioned crude weapons like these knives that are just stuck into the ends of arms, but very effective for what it is that they're trying to convey here. And as I mentioned, from a detail standpoint, some of this is among the best sculpting I think that we've seen from North Star. So yeah, tons and tons of fun. I see so much potential with this here. So on that note, let's do that. Let's cut here. We're going to assemble some of these figures. I mentioned I have some other sets that I'm going to harvest some bits and bodies from in order to do some kit bashing, and we'll see where we end up. Alright, so I've put a bunch of these figures together, and that, I guess that's probably the best compliment I could pay a box of miniatures, is if I just want to keep building them because I'm having such a good time, that probably means it's a good set, or at least it's a lot of fun to put together. Very simple to put together too. Again, 4 pieces per model, right? It's just I guess, and a base. But sure, you got the body, 2 arms, head, and a base, so very straightforward to put together. And half the fun was just mixing and matching heads and arms. It was fun. You can see I don't clean up models in terms of mold lines. I just snip them off the sprue. But that is very normal in terms of multi-part plastics, and you can see even just from scraping with a fingernail that it's already pretty much gone, right? So certainly if you take the side of an X-Acto knife, you're going to be able to clean those up without any issue whatsoever. But I think these look fantastic, right? The proportions all look really cool. I was having fun just dry fitting, trying out a bunch of different poses, and I was just having a really good time. And I think that these look really, really neat. And I mentioned some of the best sculpting I think that we've seen from North Star Plastics, because the detail, especially on all these little robotic bits, are really fantastic, and I think they're going to hold paint very well. And yeah, some real spooky looking guys that you can create here just from the stuff straight out of the box. Again, no conversion work yet. These first 5 models are all just straight out of the box without any conversions, and absolutely I think are full of character. And just so like in between the head and arm combos, you have way more options than you're ever going to need to use. And yeah, give me kind of Mechanicus vibes, give me Chaos vibes if you're looking to use these for something other than Stargrave. I can totally see these as like Inquisition henchmen or something like that. I'm a big proponent of that, using miniatures for whatever you want to use them for. So we've got some conversions here, actually. Let's start with this one over here. So I mentioned we have some other sets from Stargrave that you'll get some foreshadowing on here, but we'll do proper reviews down the road. So what this is a body from the Automaton kit with head and arms from the Scavengers set, the Stargrave Scavengers. Which is cool again if you're looking to use these bodies, but you want like proper arms, because almost all the arms, I should say, in the Automaton kit have gear blended into the arm, either guns or weapons that are just integrated, which is the design of the set. This one is the opposite, so this is a scavenger body, scavenger right arm, and the head and the left arm are from the Automaton kit. So you can see again going back to, I guess, my use of the term cyborg. I guess this is more appropriate for that. So there you go, a little something fun for you. Now we're moving into the Mercenaries box, the Stargrave Mercenaries. So this body is an automaton, the head and the arms here are from the Mercenaries kit, making kind of a cable-looking character there. This one too is an automaton body with arms and a head from the Mercenaries set. So you can see critically that all of the bits, and this is a staple of North Star sets, all of the bits from these sets blend together without any issue. They're all the same proportion, all slightly heroic scale 28mm plastics, and I think they blend together fantastically. It gives you so many options, especially when we're talking about sci-fi where there's going to be very little uniformity here. And then this is the opposite. This is a Mercenaries body with arms and a head from this set. And not, again, we're not here to review the Mercenaries set. We will do a review of the Mercenaries set probably again in the next week or so. But just look at the difference in the sculpting here in terms of crispness on like this pouch here compared to the arm from the Automaton set. So if you've dealt with North Star sets in the past, especially any of their very early sets that they've put out, you can see a marked increase in quality from a sculpting and production standpoint on these newer sets. So I strongly recommend you check out some of this new stuff because they look really, really fantastic. So let's do some scale comparisons here. Let me throw them on the Lazy Susan and we'll see how they stack up with some other manufacturers. Okay, here we go. So I'm spinning them here next to a bunch of different miniatures from different manufacturers and ranges. And you can see those manufacturers or ranges listed in red on the front of the bases. And otherwise, pay attention to base height there, because that's really going to be the only difference here in terms of height, is the slight difference in thickness in the base between those 25mm rounds that the white prime miniatures are on and the flats that the automatons are on. So what's the verdict? This is definitely, from a sculpting and design standpoint, North Star's strongest kit to date. And again, that comes with my bias as being mostly a fantasy guy. However, these are beautifully detailed and sculpted. I think these look really fantastic. And for me anyway, as a hobbyist first, I really appreciate any set that has an eye toward utility, by which I mean, again, as somebody who likes to kit bash between sets, between manufacturers, to have a set like this that really is just like a bunch of heads and arms that you can then kit bash across other sets is a real delight and a great thing to have in my collection. So definitely worth checking out. Again, huge thanks to North Star for sending this to us to take a look at. I mentioned we've got quite a few Stargrave reviews in the pipeline here. I'm actually simultaneously working on some other projects, so there's going to be kind of a flurry of videos coming out here very shortly. So if you're into that kind of thing, stay tuned. As ever, I appreciate you dropping by for this one in the meantime. And until next time, happy gaming.